right, let's take a look now at Bleacher Report's top 10 NBA players based on several metrics through the All-Star break this season. Harden, LeBreezy, Westbrook, Giannis, Karl Anthony Towns, your top 5. KD is 10th. Two notables not on the list were Chris Paul and Kyrie Irving, who received honorable mentions. Stephen A., biggest issue with that list?
My biggest issue is that CP3 was not on that list. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but Chris Paul is an MVP candidate. He's not the MVP candidate that James Harden is. James Harden of the Houston Rockets is the leading candidate for league MVP right now. And if the vote were today, James Harden would be the league MVP. Chris Paul's in that conversation, though. Has anybody seen what they have done with him on the basketball floor? Has anybody seen how him and James Harden have flowed? Has anybody noticed that they haven't even lost more than 4 games together while they've been on the court? Chris Paul looks like a superstar. And oh, by the way, in case you haven't noticed, look at the Clippers without him. Okay? Because even though that Doc Rivers and Jerry West and those boys are still grinding and there's still an outside shot that they'll be in the playoffs, the bottom line is they are a completely different team and far less effective without Chris Paul than they were with him. And when I look at the way that he has been performing, it's not just about numbers, it's about leadership, and it's about giving you the impression that big things are going to happen just because you have arrived. That is what Chris Paul has done in Houston, and I don't see how he could have been left off that list.
Well, I do. How many games has he missed this year? A whole lot.
12 to 15, I think.
I think it's...
I'll double check. I'll double check.
It's a big number. He's played in 39 games.
Okay.
He's missed a lot of games, and that's all that is. The reason he's not on the list is because this is not subjective. It's based on different analytics that they run everyone through for total value. And Chris Paul, game for game. By the way, you say he plays like a superstar. You know why? Because he is a superstar. Chris Paul's one of the best players in the game. One of the best players ever. So sure, game for game, he's an MVP candidate. But if you miss a bunch of games, and other guys...
He's missed 18.
18 games. You miss 18 games and you played in 39. It's a huge percentage of the season you can't be an MVP. I mean, you know, like, you'd have to be twice as good as everyone else, which he's not. He's just about as good as anyone else. That's why he's not top 10. By the way, what I find really interesting about the list is Karl Anthony Towns cracked the top 5. And if you recall, coming out of college, everyone knows, like, wow, Karl Anthony Towns is going to be amazing and everything. His defense lagged behind until recently, you know, because he looked like he was going to be a really good NBA defender, and he is turning into one. And when you combine that with his offense, Karl Anthony Towns, who is the guy you would want, including Kristaps Porzingis and everyone, that was the guy based on injury history, based on level of play, the whole thing, that you would want out of that draft, and it is turning out that way. You know, we talk a lot about Embiid and until recently Porzingis, of course, and Anthony Davis and everything, but there's Karl Anthony Towns pops up in the top 5 already, and you know what? He deserves it.
What about... Or did you want to comment on that?
No.
I was going to ask you about KD at 10.
Listen, I can't rule out anything about Karl Anthony Towns because he's special and he's still developing. I like what I see. Once upon a time, I thought Jahlil Okafor, because I'm looking at a back-to-the-basket player that could average 20 and 10, even though I think that he was misused and mistreated in Philadelphia. The bottom line is he is no Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is special, and he deserves our credit. I just don't know about the top 5 as of yet.
What about Durant at 10?
That makes no sense to me. That makes no sense.
Listen, there's one basketball and a bunch of guys sharing it, and basketball is the most dynamic of all the American team sports. And so to isolate value is sometimes very difficult. It really depends. You know, the value to the team has to do with the system you're in, how well you fit it, what your usage rate is, etc., and not always actually intrinsically how good you are. In other words, James Harden comes out number 1 here. If Mike D'Antoni had LeBron James in that system, do I believe LeBron James would be number 1 according to these numbers? Yeah, by a lot. So it's not really gauging the intrinsic value of every player. It's trying to gauge, what they're trying to do here is gauge actually the contributions on the court of each player, and that's dependent upon things more than just
like
themselves.
the talent they're with.